Coast FM 963, 24 minutes past 11. I just played church almost with you, and I have Carlos Camacho, our in-house psychologist here, and he said, oh, you've got to say Carlos is almost with us. And I missed my moment, but I'm bringing it back, Carlos. Thank you for that prompting.
I think you just saved it. It's a wonderful entry.
Thanks for coming in today.
Oh, my pleasure, then.
Lovely to see you as always. And today we're going to speak about personality disorders, aren't we?
Yes, it's a very interesting, it's probably one of the most interesting subjects in psychology.
Okay.
Because I think people are very, they are very interested in things that make people tick, and also things that are a bit complex and mysterious. And with personality disorders, we have heard a lot of stories, haven't we? Watched movies,
yes,
and
freaky movies,
read poetry, and known of celebrities and artists and people that have been either very eccentric or very withdrawn. And most of these people definitely did have a personality disorder.
Okay. One type of disorder is narcissism, isn't it? That's pretty popular with people, isn't it? Narcissism?
Yes. The thing about narcissistic personality disorder is that it's difficult to identify because, especially in the Western world, we promote a lot of those attributes.
Yes.
You know, think of yourself, you deserve it. You know, I think that's actually
overconfidence,
because you deserve it. Yeah. And overconfidence, that's right, a bit of arrogance, borderline on aggressiveness, you know. But definitely a lot of self-centeredness. Now, that is not all necessarily negative if used focused on achieving something.
And like you say, for good and not for evil.
And not evil. Yeah, that's right. And so it's very hard to distinguish, and there's a lot of people that experience that and either do have narcissistic personality disorder or are just very good at what they do, and it's very difficult to identify. Now, what we do know is the effects outside of what they're doing. So if it's affecting their social life, their relationships and so forth, then we see it as a disorder because the world itself isn't built for them, for that type of personality.
Yeah, and is it really hard to recognise? They come across as very pleasant, very lovely people at first, don't they, until you get to know them?
Yes, there's a few narcissistic type personalities, and the main one that we know is those people are relatively self-centered, and they're not necessarily bad people.
Yes.
A lot of them. Yes. It's just that the first thought that comes to mind is themselves when they're doing anything and so forth. But they're also quite concentrated and focused on their own achievements. Sometimes to the negative and detrimental effects of others, and that's when it can become a problem. And so usually what happens with that type of personality disorder, most people start going away from them. Yeah, they withdraw because they don't have time for anyone else but themselves. Yeah. And then there's the histrionic.
I was wondering what that is. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, histrionic. Yeah, it's a wonderful personality. It's actually my favourite personality disorder.
Why is that? You've got a favourite.
I think it's people with histrionic personality disorders. Actually, I used that in my book, Goodbye Charlie, to diagnose Charlie as histrionic. Basically, it is a self-centered type personality disorder, but it's probably more traditionally inclined to people that use others to gain what they want. So they are a little bit self-centered, but more importantly, they use a lot of their qualities, whether it's sexuality or intelligence, charisma, to convince others. Yes. And so they're very, very manipulative for their own end. But they can be very charming as well. Okay,
what's the difference between a histrionic personality disorder and a narcissistic personality disorder?
I think with the narcissistic, they are fully concentrated on themselves, and therefore I think they can do less damage. With histrionic personality disorder, in order to achieve their ends, some people diagnosed with that type of personality disorder will will utilize others, so they will give a lot of energy and time to others, but only to achieve their own means.
Yeah.
And the most popular one out of these realm of personality disorders is the borderline.
Is it the most
disorder.
popular?
Yes, because it's
Not your favourite?
not my favourite. No,
Yeah.
it's not as glamorous. A lot of people with borderline personality disorder also are very self-destructive, and there's a lot of addiction, and they do, like histrionic, use a lot of their sexuality and a lot of their charisma to gain things, but it's mainly they don't have an end goal. There's a lot of self-destruction, and it's very, very difficult to live with someone with borderline personality disorder because they can be very moody, up and down, and they don't really know what they want, like the histrionic may.
Yeah, or the narcissistic. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So we've got to say, Deb, and clear up that personality disorders are only disorders because most people don't have them. You know?
Yeah, that's
because
right.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. We all have a personality.
We do, don't we?
We all have a personality. And it's only a disorder if it doesn't fit into the world. So if there are different cultures where people with different type of personalities will fit in better than others, without a doubt. I've noticed as well, for example, with politicians, a lot of the politicians in Europe are expected to be a little bit eccentric.
Yeah.
And, a bit like Paul Keating was, where Paul Keating seemed a little bit out of place here for the Anglo-Saxon type of society. They wanted someone a little bit more humble and modest.
Yeah.
So there is room culturally for different types of personalities, but
Makes sense.
the world is built for the 70% of us. That's why I have trouble finding shoes, because I'm size 14. Who's going to make shoes that only 1% of population are going to buy? So they make shoes.
No cobblers anymore, is it?
That's right. And it's the same with education and many other things, and definitely with personality. The world is built for the 70%, and so anyone outside the 70%, definitely within the 10%, is seen as abnormal in psychology, but we have to be careful using that term. I think we all have our unique personalities, and I don't agree with psychology with the diagnosis that it's permanent, because nothing's permanent. There's always room for change, and we all know that all our cells are changing constantly physiologically, and therefore the mind is changing as well.
Feel it too, don't you? You notice it happening.
Oh, without a doubt, yes.
Yeah,
And it's in psychology, I think we are in flux. So a personality disorder is, for me, a temporary diagnosis, and this I would have a lot of criticisms maybe from other psychologists, but I think we have to provide room for people to accept themselves and to be able to change.
Yeah, treatment. What sort of treatment to come and see a psychologist, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean,
First up?
I think the main thing with personality disorders is having an empathetic person who won't diagnose the patient in order to be able to treat it in a pharmacological way with medication. A lot of it, I feel, is coming to terms with what our Achilles heel, if you like.
Okay.
And so I think someone with a personality disorder, if they are aware they do have one, they can look at it, they can research it, and they can say, okay, these are the strengths of my personality.
Yeah.
These are the weaknesses, and I want to try to change that.
Get rid of the destructive ways of that personality if they can.
Exactly. And with those three disorders that we mentioned, I think one thing that really helps is humility.
Yes.
When we learn to be humble and respect others and be able to be considerate and know there are differences with people, then I think that's a great start.
So important, and such a very important subject today, personality disorders.
We could go on forever.
We could. I have a few more questions, but I think it's time to play the song that you picked. Beautiful song.
Yes.
Where's it from? A movie?
It was adapted for a movie called Donnie Darko, a wonderful movie. And it used a lot of the music from the 80s. And it finishes up with this song called Mad World by Tears for Fears, but it was readapted by a guy called Gary Jules, and it's a beautifully moody song about someone with a personality disorder.
Very good choice, Carlos. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you,
See
Deb.
you next time. 26 minutes to 12 on Coast FM, and Gary Jules, Mad World.
Tears are filling up their glasses. No expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. Dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad, mad. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. I feel the way that every child should. Sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew, no one knew. And the teacher tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. People run in circles, it's a very, very